Barbara Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak to the Employment Relations Amendment Bill. On this side of the House, we had hoped that because the bill had been sitting on the order paper for quite some time, that the government would just let it sit there like it has so many others and just fade into the background. This bill affects thousands and thousands of workers negatively right across New Zealand. There are too many changes that basically affect workers' rights. It's not a popular bill. In fact, there was no call by employers or employees for any changes to the current situation. So why we have this bill is quite a mystery. We know that by far the biggest number of submissions, and we received over 13,000 of them, were opposed to this bill. We heard some heart-rending stories, and again, those people were opposed to the bill. It's not a popular bill. With this government, it's unfortunate. We have seen numerous pieces of legislation slowly but surely pursuing an anti-worker agenda. We believe in New Zealand First that this bill will negatively undermine wage-fixing principles under New Zealand law and create conflict between employees and employers. We must tell the Labour government, the national government, there's a very fine balance between assuring and affirming the rights of the workers on one hand and allowing enough worker flexibility so as not to hinder any business's production, profitability and productivity, which we firmly believe in. New Zealand First definitely understands this, and we believe too that the New Zealand public largely recognise this. There's always a trade-off. There's a balance between the two extremes. Kiwi owners and Kiwi workers and business owners know this. They're all more or less in the centre. They are very aware that to go to either end of the spectrum is to invite the prospects of workers' strikes or businesses failing. In New Zealand First, we believe that employers need flexible, dedicated staff and that employees need appropriate conditions and remuneration. Safety of workers is absolutely paramount. We've had bills in the House on this particular issue. And of course, scheduled breaks assist with this. This bill, unfortunately, changes the existing rule for employees' entitlements for rest and meal breaks, saying that these should be more flexible and negotiable and be able to be paid out to workers is going to have a negative effect on safety and workers' output. The removal of the 30-day rule will seriously undermine collective bargaining. Employers will now be able to offer different terms and conditions to new employees, despite agreements reached with unions for that not to happen. It's going to remove the protection new employees have had from being taken on at lower pay rates or on inferior terms and conditions. The employment relationship is not a level playing field. We've already seen numerous businesses and organisations come out against this particular legislation. They want to protect their brands by protecting the rights of their workers against the unnecessary legislation that this government is proposing. Employment relations must be collaborative. There is the duty to conclude collective bargaining has actually been removed from this particular bill. Working to rule can actually be considered a partial strike. There is a fine balance between assuring and affirming the rights of workers and allowing sufficient flexibility so as not to hinder production or productivity. This bill, before the House today, is basically a kick in the head for hard-working New Zealanders. But there's a bit more to it than that. It's seeking to apply a set of rules for which there is already a great deal of flexibility. And it really goes to show just how out of touch this bill is with the reality of the workplace and with small to medium business owners up and down the country. The bottom line is that small business owners have understandings with employees, cafe owners, retailers, electricians, they all expect that their workers will go the extra mile when they're faced with a deadline, and staff, by and large, are obliging. They need to work. They know how hard it is to actually find a job in today's environment. Unfortunately, this bill is not about bettering business. It is definitely not. Once again, this government is attempting to pass legislation for a small problem which does not exist in reality. Once again, they have misunderstood working relationships in small businesses and companies. And once again, they are pursuing an anti-worker agenda where most businesses seem content with the status quo. For these reasons, New Zealand First is pleased to be voting against this bill.
Dr Cam Calder.
Mr Speaker, it gives me a slight amount of pressure to rise and talk